Good afternoon and welcome to our Hello Spring Knit Along, starting today on April 1st. So hello April, hello Spring, and a big hello to all of the knit alongers. So for this Spring Knit Along we have two projects to choose from. One is the gorgeous Sonoran Shawl, which is partially knit over here on my right. And that is a fabulous fade technique. So for anyone who has not done fade before in knitting, it's quite an easy process. It's just a matter of choosing 3 colors or more that complement each other, and then the pattern will instruct you on how to work those colors in a stripe fashion so that the colors gently blend instead of having definite color blocks or definite stripes. So that is beginner to intermediate level. I know it looks a little bit tricky, but with our weekly help, tips and tutorials, it's not that difficult. Second project is called Hitofude Cardigan, and this one is knit from the top down, all in one piece. So there is absolutely no sewing of seams, and the name is actually inspired by an ancient Japanese paint technique with the same name, Hitofude, which means one stroke dragon painting. So if you've seen any of the original Japanese paintings of a dragon, they work the whole design with just one paint stroke. So this is similar but in a knitting format. So I'm going to go over the yarns today that we've been able to choose from and go over the sizing, how to get started. It is cast on day, and as always we do have our ballot box hiding behind me. So for anyone who has signed up for the knit along, you already have a ballot in the ballot box. And then each week for the month of April, every Friday, I'll do a little trivia question live here, and then one random winner will be chosen and also receive another ballot to go into the ballot box. Next week, hopefully I'll have the grand prize to show you so you can see what you're knitting towards. And what else? Okay, so I think I'll start with Sonoran, which is inspired by the desert, which runs from Mexico all the way through Arizona into British Columbia. So Canada actually does have a desert of its own. And these colors are just representing the spring blooms that you would see if you're at the desert at this time of the year. They're just starting to come into bloom, according to one of our knitters who was in today. She was in Arizona last week, and she said this bright pink is already popping on the cactus, and the yellows, the oranges, there's some blues and some purples and some coral shades too. So this is just something to give us a little burst of color for the month of April, and we certainly can use it on these gray, damp days. I'm going to bring the project pictures up closer so you can see them against the camera. So this is Sonoran. It is knit on the bias. So from tip to tip it will block out at 81 inches long and 20 inches wide. That gives you a lot of versatility for how you wear it. Once around the neck, twice around the neck, double knot as shown in the photo, or wear it with a lovely shawl pin. And it is knit in fingering weight Pepino by Richard DeVries. He is our Ontario dye master. So we're using 65 gram skeins of high twist merino in his stippled colorways, just because they're extra special for blending and fading the colors together. So one skein holds 225 yards, and on the table I have about 10 or 12 shades, and I will certainly list the colors I've used in our shop sample. And then for the Hitofude Cardigan, there's a close-up. You can see the amazing construction knit from the top down. With a crochet cast on, and I'll demonstrate that so you can get started. There is some Knit One Purl One ribbing and a very, very simple lace motif which is continued all the way through the cardigan. And to give it the A-line shaping, there are some increases made in the plain stocking stitch so that the lace motifs start to spread further and further apart. So that is also knit in fingering weight yarn. This is the open front version, and it is knit with a buttonhole, but that is optional. So there are plenty of yarn choices for the cardigan. Some of you have already been in to pick your colors, and some are waiting for it in the mail. So we were choosing between Lily and Pine, which is a fingering hand-dyed tonal blend of merino, cashmere, and a tiny bit of nylon. So this rose petal shade was a popular choice for spring. And then a more neutral shade was the silver fox. And at least two of our knit-alongers have chosen that one. And then for something dark and divine, that pretty indigo. And that one is called After Midnight. And then today we had somebody in who picked hand-dyed merino called Alma. So that will not knit up in stripes. That will just be an all-over wash of color. And a very pale version of Alma, shades of sky blue, plum, and little speckles of purple. And the one that I've chosen to knit mine in, I don't know, for some reason this color really spoke to me, so I will show you how much I've knit this week on it. So I chose the cranberry in the unique fingering because I really like the subtle tonal quality, and I thought it'd be a great color to wear right through to the fall. So that one is also a merino fingering, 100 grams, also hand dyed, and it comes in the royal purple, the tonal gray, which is light to medium shading, and a hot pink. This would look gorgeous too, but I've already knit something up in the shop in this lipstick pink. So those are some of the color choices that have been making it difficult for the knit-alongers to choose from. It can be overwhelming when you have too many options. And now I'm going to bring over the shawl so you can have a close-up of the details in the lace work. So as I mentioned, it is knit on the bias. That means you have an increase at the beginning of your right side row and a decrease at the end of the right side row. So every row you're going to maintain the same number of stitches, but the shawl, instead of growing in a rectangular shape, will grow into this elongated shape. And that gives it a nice stable edge, which is very stretchy. It doesn't curl. And once it's blocked, of course, we'll have a nice shape. So we've got lots and lots of garter stitch for mindful knitting. And there you can see the first fade where the colors were blended. Color 1 into color 2. Color 2 makes a beautiful mesh lace panel. And then color 3 starts to fade. So color 2 into color 3 is another fade. And then this bright pop of what Richard has named indelibly, this hot pink speckle makes a scalloped wave panel, and that is the fourth color. So those 4 colors are repeated all the way through the shawl. I am at about 75% completed, and I'm going to have to do some aggressive blocking to get the lace sections to really open up and create a nice even edge on both sides. So aggressive blocking is entirely fine. That's something we're used to doing on shawls. So the 4 colors I'm using in this sample are Twyla Bray, Country Casual, Fizzy Pop, and Indelibly. And I think so far everybody has picked a totally different combination of colors. It's really just what appeals to you and maybe how you see the desert shades. So that's the palette that I'm working with. And if you look at our events page, you can see the full spectrum of color combinations, or you can just go with dealer's choice, which means you trust the dealer, to pick a really nice palette for you. And this is how much I have knit so far on Hitofude. So that again needs to be seen close up. So to start, we do the crochet chain, which is a provisional cast on. That's the yellow cotton thread. And then it's just a matter of repeating the lace sections over and over. So this is actually the yoke of the cardigan and the sleeves. It's going to be a little bit like a jigsaw puzzle, and of course we have to trust the pattern until we see how it shapes and how it comes together. But luckily this pattern has been well tested by knitters everywhere, and there are no mistakes and no problems. Both patterns have been well tested by knitters around the world. So we know that it is going to work out well. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just go through the startup for Sonoran. So you do need 4 colors of fingering weight. Color 1, you require 324 yards, which is 2 skeins of Richard's Pepino. And color 2, you need 449 yards, which is again 2 skeins of Richard's. Color C, 297 yards. We're going to work it out so that you only need 1 skein. There's a magical trick at the end of the shawl. So you only need 1, and that way you won't have any leftovers from the second skein. The 4th color you need 389 yards, so that again requires 2 skeins, and that is quite a large area. That's the hot pink, called Indelibly. So of course I do need the 2 skeins because the center of the shawl is the widest repeat of that lace pattern. Once you've picked your 4 colors, then a 4mm circular 24-inch needle is required, and I am cautioning people who have not used Richard's yarn before to be very careful with your tension. It's a very bouncy elastic type of merino, and you can easily use up too much yardage if you are a little bit of a loose knitter. That means the stitches get away from you, and instead of snugging them up, they get a little bit looser each time. So you can imagine after every row you're using a bit more in terms of yardage. So in that case you would be best to go to a 3.75mm circular needle, or just be very conscious of your tension and try to snug up the stitches more than you would with a regular merino such as this one, which is not as elastic. So yardage is very important for this shawl. Stitch markers are optional. They come in handy for the pattern repeats, especially through the big lace panel here. The little lace panel, which is shown in the light purple, it's a very simple, I think it's a 4-stitch repeat, so it's easy to memorize and easy to see if you go off course, but this has a larger stitch repeat. So stitch markers, although they say they're optional, they really will come in handy. And then of course you just need your darning needles to sew in your ends. And the stitch techniques that you'll be using on Sonoran are knit 2 together, knit 3 together, make 1, and an SSSK, which is slipping 3 stitches knit ways, 1 at a time, and then knitting the 3 stitches together. So that's a double decrease, and then also a yarn over. So very basic lace stitches. There are no cables, no short rows, no wrap stitches, so you get off pretty easy if this is the one that you've chosen for your project. And tension should be 22 stitches by 32 rows, and that's worked over garter stitch. It's very important when you do your tension swatch that you work it in the garter stitch, not stocking stitch. Garter stitch tends to relax a little bit east to west, and then north to south it tightens up compared to stocking stitch. And the pattern is very well written. I'll put the links down below so you can see all the information on Ravelry about both patterns that we've chosen. I like the way it's written. It's almost like chapters in a book or paragraphs. So each paragraph is one section of the shawl. So you know that when you finish one paragraph, you can go on to the next. And I found, in the evening I would do 1 page of the pattern or 1 chapter, and that would get me probably 8 or 10 inches into the shawl, and then I would be satisfied, and then the next night I would do the next page, and so on. And we have made a couple of changes, slight changes in the repeats of the lace pattern, because being a high twist merino and being very elastic, the shawl was working out a little bit longer than what the finished total length should be. So at the halfway point I found that it was about 44 inches, and if it's 81 finished, it should be about, the halfway point should be about 40.5 inches. So just to keep an accurate gauge on how much yardage you're using from each skein, I'll make a note and put it in our Hello Spring Knit Along event page, and just tell you where we've reduced a few of the rows. It doesn't disturb the pattern overall, it's just a safety measure to make sure you have enough yardage when you get to the end of the shawl. So I am probably on page 8 now, as I'm at the three-quarter point of the shawl. There is a good diagram that the designer includes so you can see the bias shape. And then she's also put in lace 1, lace 2, lace 1, lace 2. So you get a visual of where you are for how many lace panels you've done. So altogether, to complete the shawl, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lace panels, and 4 of them are in the mesh lace, and 3 of them are in the scallop lace. Okay, so I think that will get you going on the Sonoran Shawl. It's just a regular cast on. I like the finger and thumb method. You could do the knitted cast on, as long as you feel that you're getting some stretch and it's not puckering or pulling in or leaving holes. And remember to leave about 4 to 6 inches of each color as you change to the next color. And then next week I'll go over how to sew in the ends very neatly on the wrong side of the work. I've sewn in all the ends, but I'm going to leave the last quarter to show you next week. Okay. And now we're on to Hitofude, which is designed by Hitofude Cardigan. Hope I got that right. And this one is requiring a 3.5 circular needle, 32 inches long, and again you should check your gauge. I have gone up to a 3.75. I feel it just softens the look a bit more and opens up the lace work. It's not really going to change the overall finish size or tension by going up a 1/4 millimeter size. So if you are a loose knitter, you may have to go to a 3.25. If you are just an average knitter, you can stay with your 3.5. And if you're a bit of a tight knitter, then you can go up to 3.75. And in terms of sizing, the pattern is offered in extra small, small, medium, large, extra large, extra, extra large. And size-wise, she is stating that the extra small should fit finished bust size of 30 to 32 3/4. The small 32 inch to 37, that's the one I'm knitting for the shop sample. Medium would be 37.5 to 41.25. Large 41 3/4 to 45.25. Extra large 46 to 50 inches. Extra extra large 50.5 to 54.25. Because it does have the A-line shaping from the underarm down, that gives you lots of extra width. You just have to size yourself around the underarm and see which one matches up closest to your measurement. And she is requiring 730 yards for the extra small, up to 1,530 yards for the extra extra large. So basically in the 100 gram skeins that I've shown you today, it would be 2 skeins up to about 3 skeins. They do vary a little bit in yardage, but most have about 420 yards per skein. The one I've chosen, I'll be using 2 skeins for the small. These have 400 and a bit more than 420. Yeah, I think this was 440, so I know I'll have plenty left over, and then you can also take the option of knitting it a bit longer if you want to and you have the extra yardage. The gauge is 20 stitches and 32 rows to 4 inches over chart A. So chart A is the basic lace pattern, which creates that pretty chevron, or if you look at it upside down, it looks like a heart. And stitch markers are definitely necessary for this one, just to mark the border stitches, which are worked in knit 1 purl 1 ribbing. And if you are starting off in the lace pattern, you might find the stitch markers are also helpful in between each stitch repeat. So 1 stitch repeat is 12 stitches, so you should plan on having about maybe a dozen stitch markers handy. Optional 1 button, about a 1/2 inch size, and a crochet hook to do the crochet cast on, which I'm going to show you. And that's about it. So yes, so in her pattern, she is giving charted directions and the written directions. So that is an extra bonus because you can choose which method you would like to follow. I do find the chart works best for me. And because we're starting with the upper body and sleeves, it's a little bit hard to tell, but what I'm doing here is I'm just working straight up in the lace pattern, the 12 stitch repeat, and I'm working for this size 12 repeats. So 12 repeats of each chart section, which is 8 rows. That will be enough width that will wrap over my arm, and then there's going to be a 3 needle bind off to join the underarm seam, on both sides. So I'm going to be at that stage next week, and then I can demonstrate how to do that. And that will get rid of the crochet chain, your waste yarn. And then you'll be transitioning into the body, and that will be worked back and forth on the same circular needles. So the stitches that will be required for this pattern: yarn over, very simple, knit two together, very simple, and the SSK, which is slip, knit, pass, slip, stitch over in Canadian lingo, and knits and purls. And she has gone through and put in some very helpful diagrams as a tutorial for how to join the underarm seams with the 3-needle bind off, and how to do the increases as you get down into the body and you're creating the A-line shape. And the schematic here is quite helpful too. Very, very unusual construction for this cardigan, but it is a lot of fun. It will keep you guessing at each section. So this is the right sleeve and the left sleeve worked as a rectangle. And then the back neck, left front, right front. Okay, so first step is to take a crochet hook. I would say any size from a 3 up to a 4 millimeter. And then you're going to crochet just a very simple chain. And try to choose a yarn that has a silky texture, something in a cotton, a bamboo, or acrylic. If you're using a wool, you'll find that it's a little bit hard to pull out the crochet chain at the end because the fibers have nestled together with your main yarn. So this is just an acrylic yarn. I've used a thicker yarn just for demonstration. And according to your size, the pattern will tell you how many chain stitches to complete. You'll be making 2 sections of the crochet chain, and you will be working across both sections as one row in your main yarn. So once you've got your crochet chain completed, then it's just a matter of taking your main color yarn and your circular needle, and we're going to be picking up 1 stitch in every chain, but we're working on the back of the chain. So this side is the front of the chain. It looks like little V's interlocking. And the reverse side, all you're going to see are little ridges or bumps. So where we want to pick up each of our stitches is in the little ridge. So you'd be inserting your circular needle from the bottom to the top of the ridge, and then wrapping the yarn over, so wrapping the yarn over and bringing it back through the ridge. So that's 1 stitch created, and then going in the next ridge, which is the raised bump at the back of your chain. And the reason we're going in the little ridges instead of the front of the chain will magically appear at the end. It's just easier to unzip the chain and get it out of your knitting when you need to, if you go in the back of the stitches, not the front. If you happen to pick up in the front of the stitches, it's not a huge issue. It just means you're going to have to carefully cut through the waste yarn in various sections to release it from your knitting. Okay, so I'll put it to tutorial about the crochet chain cast on method on the events page, and if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments or send an email or a message. So now we'll get to the trivia section. Okay, so the trivia question will have to do with project number 1, the Sonoran Shawl. And feel free to make a guess in the comment section or Google the answer if you like. We're just looking for a random comment, and that will be the first incentive ballot for the knit along going in our draw bucket, and we'll be doing 1 per week for the month of April, and then we'll have a live draw and see who wins the grand prize. So the Sonoran Desert, which I mentioned, runs from Mexico through Arizona and north into British Columbia, is 100,000 square feet and is a very sensitive ecosystem with 100 rare plants and over 300 types of different critters. And just about this time of the year, March into April, if you happen to be lucky enough to be in the Midwest, you get to see the desert come alive with all sorts of shades of spring blooms. And the trivia question is, name 1 type of cacti which grows in the Sonoran Desert. So just 1 type. I know there's many, many different types. Some of them have, the arms. Some of them have the pincushion look. I think it's the pincushion style that grows that beautiful hot pink flower that's just starting to bloom. And some of them have spikes. I guess a lot of them do. So feel free to post your educated guess in the comments, and I'll go through the comments after, and I'll certainly put the links below for the 2 different projects, and then have a look on our events page, click on discussion, and each week we'll put tips and tutorials that will help you get through the various stages of each project. This one, as I said, is beginner to intermediate level, and the cardigan, Hitofude Cardigan, is definitely more advanced just because of the construction and the specified cast on. And at any time, if you feel like joining the knit along, just send me a message and I will let you know what colors are still available, and we can certainly mail them out or have them ready for you to pick up in person. So thanks everybody for watching. This is week 1, happy cast on day, and also the first day of April. So I hope the weather can only get warmer and brighter from here on in. I'll be back next Friday at 4 p.m. live, and I will definitely be at the next step on the cardigan to join the underarms, and maybe even have this cast off and blocked, and I'll be able to show you how to sew in your ends. Have a great weekend.